Heltec is running its own copy of Reticulum. Let's check it out. Like any Reticulum instance, it can run more than one interface, but more on that later. For now, we're going to start with LoRa and focus on that. While it's running, you can go into the settings and actually tune the LoRa radio straight from the device. I'm going to stick with some of the presets I'm more familiar with. You can go full custom, as you can see here. There are the shorthand that you're probably used to seeing as well, just as a convenience, especially because you're doing this with only one button at a time, short press or long press as you cycle through, but you have full control. If you need to, you can go here. I'm gonna go ahead and just pick this preset here, and I'll accept just the default channel, which is also itself a shortcut, like a helper. This just ties to specific slots, and those can be individually edited if you needed to as well. So you could accept that you actually wanted to go up to, for example, this exact part of the band. So you're not stuck with those presets, but typically you'd probably end up using them just because it's a lot easier than entering that in full every time. Also, while it's running, you can announce from the unit. And I've actually got up here, my Pluto Plus SDR is running. SDR++ here is the application that you're seeing. And that'll just show us the actual radio waves so we can verify with our own eyes the announce is actually going off. So when I hold to long press, we'll announce. There may be a short delay for carrier sensing and things like that. And then sure enough, in typical LoRa fashion, there's the announce. You can also see on the unit that after announcing, the up arrow you see, which represents the transmitted data going out, you'll see is now accounted for, 229 bytes out the door. Here we've got the T-beam also running the same thing. And as you can see here on the Heltec, when I announce, you will, after that short delay again, see the TX bump up on its, while we'll see the RX down on the T-beam climb up the same amount. You'll notice that also the TX went up as well because it's a transport node. It rebroadcasted the announce like you'd expect. And you'll notice that that little person icon there is a tracked destination through that interface. So it correctly saw the identity here that was announced, it logged it and kept track of it, as well as propagated the announce. Like I teased at the beginning, LoRa isn't the only interface though. We have our familiar auto interface in the Reticulum world, which is like Wi-Fi, your local LAN automatically. And we have the same thing here. It's just labeled Wi-Fi LAN, but that's the auto interface, like in Reticulum, fully compatible with stock Reticulum. And I want to show that. So I have stock Reticulum running here, NomadNet, local. And I will, real quick, just show you the interfaces so you can see it's nothing but the auto interface that's live. And so if we look back here, I've got all the peers cleared out. Nice clean test. If I take this now and I announce, and sure enough, there it is. And you can actually see it showing up right there on the radio as well. Because remember, in Reticulum, it will push out announces on all interfaces to propagate through the network. So you actually see that happen live, both here, local Wi-Fi, and the actual radio waves that you saw earlier up there on the SDR. Where you can really see this start to come together is here I've got the Heltec from before. Still does not have the Wi-Fi connection right now. It wasn't flashed with the credentials, and so it can't join that Wi-Fi network the way that the T-beam can, because it was flashed with them. All it has is LoRa in this case. And of course, the way Reticulum works, if I announce on here, we'll see it come through in just a moment. After that announce is done, then we'll see that the T-beam received it and sees a destination that way. Of course, we'll move it back out over Wi-Fi on the auto interface, and now our endpoint here, our peer consumer messenger, they can see it. The other direction is going to work great too. I'd like to show that as well. If we announce on this notebook here and we send it out over stock Reticulum, it goes Wi-Fi auto interface to this one and then out LoRa that way. And so if I hit announce now, then we see now that destination is then tracked and known. It's then sent back out over LoRa, as we can see there and seen here. And then this node is now, has now received it and sees that destination as well. Now, the Hopspot here speaks the same LoRa as an R node. So I've got that here, an R node attached via USB to a stock Columba app. And then we've got our T-beam up still. Heltec's out of the picture for a moment, and we've got NomadNet up here, cleared, no announces. So what we're expecting to happen is that the stock Columba app, when I announce on it, it'll go out over our node LoRa here. We'll be able to confirm that on the SDR. It gets picked up here, rebroadcast as well on LoRa, like it normally would do, but then also onto the local Wi-Fi, which is what this is running. That's the only interface it has is local Wi-Fi. And between hopping through all of that, it will get to here. So if we take from here and go back into the contact area, network, and announce, we see the announce goes out. Our node starts moving. You can see the activity up here as well. It was received here, sent back out, and now the announce shows up here indeed. Changing the setup here. So 2 quick things. One, note that the Wi-Fi LAN shows dormant. It means there are no reticulum peers at all, any nodes that are even just quiet and waiting whatsoever on this current local network. And we're gonna go ahead and actually turn LoRa off on this device, and I'll show you why in just a moment. I'm also gonna show you how you can turn off individual interfaces without having to restart the node either. So the configurations for a given interface and adding, removing, turning off and on can happen fully live at runtime, even on the embedded device here. So this is basically out of the picture now, which is why I'm showing you that. So next we've got the T-Echo, which has LoRa as well. It'll be our LoRa device here in this test so we can see it, but also has Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi. And you can see I've got the Bluetooth interface enabled here. There is no Wi-Fi on this chip at all, so all we really get is LoRa and Bluetooth, plus one more bonus one I'll show you later. And we're gonna answer the question now, if this is completely off and we do have a LoRa device we wanna receive or send on, we've got one that needs Bluetooth, now what do we do? Because so far we only saw what happens when we've got Wi-Fi connectivity and something to bridge it. So how does this now talk to the laptop again to send a message? And I'll show you. So far, we've been talking about embedded devices, but the Hopspot that you see here and the port of Reticulum that it's running on to be able to do this is actually not limited to or solely focused on embedded devices. So here's the fun little reveal. We've actually got the same thing running here on Linux. So you probably wouldn't run this for real. This is mostly for diagnostics and in this case, demonstration. But the underlying Reticulum port it's running on, of course, you could and would, and you can run NomadNet on top of it. It's fully compatible as a daemon, which I'll show you in just a moment. So now remember, our T-Echo has LoRa and Bluetooth possible. The laptop here has Wi-Fi, but it's turned off, which is why this is still dormant, because even though they both have the interface, it's actually not running at all. I'm gonna first show you that if we turn that back on, you can now see, oh, it's connected, it's active, and sure enough now, the T-beam is as well. If I turn that back off, T-beam will go back to dormant, and I'll leave it that way so we can see this test now here, purely Bluetooth, because this Linux laptop has Bluetooth, and because it can speak it, it can use it here in Reticulum. So here's what we hope will happen. We use rnode USB on our Columba app here, using stock rnode as well. It's going to hit this, which has its LoRa active. It'll then propagate out on LoRa again and Bluetooth. This will grab it on the Bluetooth, and the phone and the laptop will be able to speak to each other that way. So let's give it a shot. If we just back up now and get into our network and hit announce, there it goes. We can see the activity up here. We see that the T-Echoes now received it, put it back out onto Bluetooth. Sure enough, here we have it on Bluetooth on the laptop, and there is the anonymous peer. And one more addition, the Hopspot and the Reticulum port it runs on doesn't just run on desktop, but also mobile devices. There's an Android and an iPad. Android's got a crack in the screen, forgive me there, but it's perfect for this demonstration where we have both on similar interfaces, but there's some differences. We have no Bluetooth here and we have Wi-Fi. Android's gonna do both. And as a reminder here, we've turned off Bluetooth and turned on Wi-Fi on the laptop. So the laptop only speaks Wi-Fi. What we'd expect to happen is this. We announce on the laptop, it goes over Wi-Fi, Android gets it, and iOS gets it roughly around the same time. Android's also gonna then propagate that onto Bluetooth. Remember, Bluetooth is off on the laptop now, but Bluetooth is still on and active here on the T-Echo, which will then put it out on LoRa, which finally will come back to our T-beam, which only has LoRa right now. Let's see if that works as nice as we'd like. We announce out. Over Wi-Fi it goes. We see it here on the Android, moving out over Bluetooth. It came down here on the iOS as well. Here now it's spat back out on LoRa from Bluetooth, and finally back down to LoRa on the T-Beam. We're not stopping there. We're gonna expand this a little bit more. I mean, I've been mentioning more interfaces, and even though I'm showing these different platforms, kind of the same interfaces across a lot of them, isn't it, right? Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, even the embedded devices have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. This one has both, and even this one, a really low power, minimalist unit like this, still has Bluetooth as well. And of course, those two also have LoRa, but is that really it? No. There's actually one that is very universal across all of these as well, that's kind of right underneath our noses, that might surprise you a little bit. So what is the universal third interface here that will seem kind of obvious in hindsight? It is USB. As funny as that sounds, USB is a pretty valid interface, and the way that it's used oftentimes is like one. For example, in the R node, when we attach that via USB, it's really to create the link and drive it as a modem, but in reality, if in most cases, that the idea is you'd want the host machine, whether that's your phone or your computer, to speak over LoRa, right, to get access to a new medium you wouldn't have had. So this can function effectively the exact same way, but with this sort of plug-and-play universal approach to it. I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, we've done two things here. We've got the USB-C connected to the Android now, and we've got the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi completely turned off. LoRa radio as well is turned off on this. You'll see the USB there is active as an interface, but it's sitting dormant, which would typically be the case until you've got the USB connected. You wouldn't expect to see any activity. And we look over here, same thing here. So it's plugged in, but there's no other receiving end yet. So as I connect it here, and forgive the odd angle for a moment, but I'll plug it in and then there you go. Now, as you can see, they've both connected, begin to exchange. And so what we'd expect is if I announce on the Android, I should see it come here and be tracked and show the incoming data. So let's give that a shot. Let's go ahead and announce. And sure enough, oh, sorry, let focus, there it is. There is the track destination and the data coming down. Of course, mobile and embedded aren't the only ones with USB. Good old computers have them too. So here's the Linux, same setup now, but we turned off the other interfaces, but USB is ready, same here. When we plug that in, we should see the same kind of ultimate exchange. This connects over here on its end as it's first establishing it, and then now it's active, and so both have this active now. So again, if I were to, for example, announce here now on actual NomadNet, then when this comes through, we should see that, I know the crack screen, forgive me, but you should see the account flip to 1 and a little bit more incoming data will come down, so you'll still be able to see it. So here we go, I'm gonna go ahead and announce, and sure enough, now we can see the 1 track destination and the incoming data as well. To further the point here, now we have Linux with USB, should be able to just plug into this T-Echo that's running it. So again, forgive the odd angle as I plug this in, forgive me. But now I'm plugged in, and we'll see that this will flip from dormant to active. And then here on this side, if we were to announce one more time, then over here on the T-Echo, we have that destination now, and the data came in. So the point being that USB-C is this thing that we'd use like this all the time. Of course, we think about that, but once you turn it into an actual interface in Reticulum, and you have the implementation for the different platforms for that on one unified exchange, one unified protocol, then the plug and play becomes very easy to see. You can just connect a running instance to another one, and if there's a will, there's a way. There's a way to get that USB-C in there, then that platform will have a way, and they'll be able to exchange over it like any other interface. And the final cool thing about the USB auto interface is that it opens up the final platform that I actually have not shown yet. We've seen embedded devices, mobile on Android and iOS, and we've seen it on desktop as well. But there's actually an additional one, which is the browser, which yes, technically is also running on a mobile device or a computer, but it's a bit of a different beast just because it's a sandbox environment, but it does allow for a few things that you can have access to, primarily USB. So I can actually demonstrate that here with a live example right now. This currently right now is the browser running Reticulum native in the browser. It's using WASM, but it's running actual Reticulum. So it's not like it's running off of my Linux device anymore. Okay, so I've shut down that personal hotspot. This is now running directly in the browser. And when I hit connect USB, it'll actually see that there's a T-Echo that's plugged in because the USB is active. I've got BLE off, but we do have LoRa on. So it detected it right away. I can click that and hit connect. And there we go. Now we have an actual connection through Reticulum to now an actual device that can speak LoRa completely and purely in the browser. This is purely localhost client side doing all this work right now. So what we have here now is the stock Columba app that has just an interface that's the R-Node USB integration. The R-Node itself will then speak LoRa as kind of like a sort of modem, effectively. And then we have the Hopspot over here on the T-Echo, which has Bluetooth turned off, but does speak LoRa, so it can communicate with the R-Node over LoRa. And also has the USB connection. So as you just saw, we've got this browser natively running Reticulum connecting through just an interface like any other. That's this browser platform's implementation of the USB auto interface. Just handles the part that you saw, like things like, of course, integrating the permission to the user and things like that, right? And then passing that along to the internal engine that runs Reticulum. And now we have just a normal one more interface like any other, but now this completely browser native instance is on this mesh with LoRa getting all the way to this stock Columba app. So to show that, if we announce on this, you see the announce go out, we'll see Arno give some activity. It comes down on from LoRa through the USB, and now you can actually see here that it got the announce, it has the destination 2 hops away, and the interface ID that it was on. So that just connected pure browser instance to actual LoRa mesh to a running stock Columba app and R-Node. The best part is there's actually one entire interface as well that I haven't shown yet. It's another interface that is not in stock Reticulum, so I want to show it here because it is new, effectively. And if we look at our T-beam here, we see the LoRa is turned off, Bluetooth turned off, Wi-Fi is dormant at the time, and we can actually even turn it all the way off. But what we do have active are these two, the USB that we've been seeing recently, and then the ESP-NOW. And what that is all of these espresso chips, pretty much all of them, come with the ability to run ESP-NOW as, the way that we're using it as is a transport for Reticulum, an interface for Reticulum to send data over. But it works on Wi-Fi standards, but it is a broadcast effectively. There's no peering, no connection required. They'll just broadcast to each other. So it's really powerful because T-Beam Supreme, Heltec V4, V3, a lot of these boards in this space are all running those chips that have access to that. So now that Reticulum runs on board and it has the entire system like regular Reticulum does on a host machine, which is for all of your interfaces, adding one more because the chip supports it is relatively straightforward. And so we now have an interface that is unique to embedded, unique to this specific set of chips, family of chips, but allows for pretty cool effects in Reticulum because now these boards can talk basically directly to each other in a given area without knowing about each other ahead of time. So much shorter range, of course, than LoRa, much shorter range. This is like 2.4 gigahertz band. It's Wi-Fi. It's a decent amount of speed, but not nearly as far, of course, as what LoRa would get you. But when they are close enough, it allows for an alternative transport, which keeps LoRa open, that still allows them to directly communicate with each other. So we've seen these two boards here. They're about to speak ESP-NOW with each other, but I want to actually show this. This is a Xiao C6. This is the ESP32. It's the same family of chips as those two. It does speak ESP-NOW as well. Now, obviously, it's very, very small and compact. There is no LoRa radio on this. That's a very important distinction. What makes these boards so popular is that combination. This would only speak ESP-NOW or Wi-Fi, same radio, and same radio as well as Bluetooth, but also USB. So even this tiny little chip that's like $7 for one of these, it's easy to get in abundance. And even it has 4 different interfaces it could use. Wi-Fi and the local network as like an auto interface, ESP-NOW to be on that kind of network, the USB itself, and Bluetooth. Practically, its best fit is just Bluetooth and ESP-NOW and USB, which I'll explain in just a quick moment. But first, what we're going to do is actually we're going to power this up. This cord only goes to the actual power block, okay? There's no data, there's no machine on the other end of this, but it will power this so we can see something, because this was flashed with the same firmware adjusted for its size, but it also was set up so that it'll announce on a regular interval once it has power. So for the sake of this kind of demo, because there's no screen, that's our way we should be able to see it, because the expectation is this. We plug it in, it fires off on ESP-NOW. So this picks it up, which fires it off onto the local Wi-Fi network, which means the Windows machine will grab it, and then we should see it here. And at the same time, when the ESP-NOW went off, this one would have received it, sent it through the USB interface to Linux, and we'd see here as well. Let's go ahead and give it some power. And pretty briefly here, we should see some ESP-NOW activity on either of these. There it goes, seeing it fire off on both. And as you can see here, Linux sees the C6, the personal hotspot C6. Windows sees the same thing, coming through LAN over that. So full loop all the way through. This little guy is able to talk to these, which can pass it along to other devices. And you can see how quickly this mesh becomes incredibly resilient. Now, same chip, just with a USB attachment that isn't like a normal cable as we'd picture it. And so when you put that together, that form factor makes you realize, yeah, it's basically like a dongle. I mean, you know, a Bluetooth dongle would be not too far off from this kind of shape, right? So even though this is just like a, you know, dev board and no casing and just slapped in there, it gives you the rough idea. And so if we were to plug this into Linux now, then we end up with, if I can just get that in, forgive the odd angle. Okay, plugged in. Now it's attached via USB. Now this was properly reflashed with the regular firmware. It's not automatically announcing itself. So even though it's directly attached via USB, even still we don't see more announces coming through. What it is though is effectively like a relay, like all of these would be. These are all effectively like silent relays. And even, you know, if there's a phone, for example, these are acting as relays right now. We're not really a consumer of the Reticulum network or like LXFM messages on this Android, right? It's acting just like a Hopspot, right? Just like a relay. So if you look at the situation that we're left with, we've got this acting like the onboard for the Linux device to be able to speak ESP-NOW, Bluetooth. I mean, some computers don't have Bluetooth native on boards. They would need a dongle anyways to speak Bluetooth. But then we get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, ESP-NOW, and the USB connection so we can plug it in like a dongle. One of the ways we get these unstoppable mesh networks true to the promise is by using all these interfaces on any machines that want to run Reticulum, as many interfaces as possible to be able to keep the connectivity going. So here on Mac, which you're now seeing, we also have it running along with NomadNet. And on the Mac here, if we look up top, you see we've got everything off to kind of simulate all this happens to have is a USB connection. That USB actually leads right over here into the iPad that you've seen before. This USB is active, connected to the Mac, and is also on the local Wi-Fi. On the same local Wi-Fi, let's say we had an Android. Let's say we had an Android plugged up to a Heltec, because this one's trying to get LoRa access, and it likes the USB as the mechanism to get there. So all it has is just that Wi-Fi and USB. We're not even using Bluetooth here in this example. Bluetooth is kind of like the lingua franca, which was a point I wanted to make as well too. For virtually all of these can speak Bluetooth. And so getting that onboarded as like a first-class citizen that is cross-platform and highly supported like this makes a big difference. So I'm actually not even using that, and I'm leaving that off to still show in these constrained situations. This one here, This health tech can speak LoRa, but let's say no Bluetooth on and no local Wi-Fi, but has the USB connection and can also speak ESP-NOW. So this is a classic broadcast relay, basically. Broadcasting ESP-NOW, broadcasting LoRa. This, as a dongle, effectively able to speak ESP-NOW, bridges Linux in. I'm also going to have these two here are both up and live, and they only have LoRa active just to kind of represent, in this example in our heads, distant peers, right? So whatever's behind this network and the interfaces there, we don't know. Same with that one, but when this fires off on LoRa, both of those will still hear it and propagate to their own part of the network. On top of that, we also still have the Windows machine on Wi-Fi. So when this goes out over the iPad, if we start from the Mac here and we go out over the iPad on Wi-Fi from the USB, then the Android's going to get the Wi-Fi at the same time. Windows is going to get it right away. Then Android will continue through USB, ESP-NOW to that, and then we'll hit our LoRa peers along the way when this gets triggered. So let's give it a shot. Also, of course, as a mesh, it's definitely not just one way. So if we announce here on Linux, it'll go out through all those same paths. We see Windows has seen it already here as Linux laptop. You can kind of see the SDR in the background going off from the LoRa. It'll scroll down in a second. You'll see that one as well too. But after that, we also can go over here to the Mac, where that first one came from, and it also got the Linux laptop. So it rode both directions, there and back, spreading across the mesh. And that was very constrained interfaces on each one along the way. So imagine now instead you've got these kinds of kits, which are very common, the Heltec, etc., where you've got a ton of rich interfaces actually, because you've got the LoRa radio. It can also speak Bluetooth. And it's running out of size doing this many things on that chip, so it can only hold a couple of Bluetooth connections compared to the others. So it's kind of like a trade-off with that, but it still can speak Bluetooth, so it can keep that lingua franca and move along that path as well. But on top of that, excuse me, sorry, it's a little hard to see. On top of that, we've got the Wi-Fi. Let it adjust. So local Wi-Fi. So when you've got one of these set up as like a home node, you can just put it on your local Wi-Fi, and then anything else you have, any of your devices will benefit from that LoRa radio directly, because it will just spread it across the local Wi-Fi like any other auto interface would. And then you've got the ESP-NOW to be on that kind of sub-network like we sort of talked about. It's not a sub-network, it's just that it's limited chips, but a lot of them in this space will have it. Finally, the USB, which, even though it seems kind of silly, as you can see, really pays off, because devices can just connect so much more easily in cases where maybe they don't quite speak the other things, but USB is, true to its name, basically universal. One actual bonus goodie on top of everything else, these boards here, they can speak Wi-Fi, of course. They can also be access points on Wi-Fi. They can put up their own little Wi-Fi hotspot for people to join. Of course, you typically wouldn't have internet, it can't bridge that. But in a situation where you've got a bunch of devices and they can all speak Wi-Fi, I don't know, a campsite or some situation where you might want the range of something like this, and that's why we're talking about it. But a lot of you are around, maybe you've got multiple devices, and just talking on a Wi-Fi network would be nice. Instead of having to bring your own travel Wi-Fi router with you, any of these effectively can become one. So in the menu, we'll go here, there's this AP mode, like access point. So Wi-Fi access point, it'll just let you know that for that to run, and this is just kind of a quirk right now with these chips, maybe one day this could be lifted, but for now, for this to work, Bluetooth on this would have to be off. So that's just the trade there. So we're gonna just say yes, go ahead and turn it off, and come back on with access point mode. So I'll go ahead and even just turn off Bluetooth real quick here. And then we've got Wi-Fi. In this case, it's acting as both a station, so it's acting as a participant in my actual Wi-Fi network here, while also holding out its own access point for those to join on. I'm gonna even just turn off ESP-NOW for now, because that's less of the focus here, and the USB won't matter. So let's say this has a LoRa radio, that's why you might do this. Now there's an access point. And so I'm gonna show that to you here on this phone, this mobile phone. I'm gonna pull up the actual Android menu and show you the wireless networks. So what I mean is this, we've got the network that it actually is on right there. We see this one, see Hopspot and a little identifier. They're not tied to an actual identity at all. It's completely disjointed, but just if you have more than one in the area, they don't collide. And so this can actually join this, like a normal phone would join a network like this. And it actually even gives this prompt to sign in. So it takes them straight to, this is actually serving a static copy of the dock site. So the first load, it might take a moment, but it will load it down. And now it has a copy of the dock site on it for building on this port of Reticulum. And then on top of that, it has things like a web flasher, which I'll come back to that in just a moment, but also even just the source code. The entire zip source code is packaged on this and is able to fit in that flash space that we have. So it can kind of help rebuild itself by having this firmware on there. You at any point can turn that on, not only have an access point to have like a rendezvous, have like a local travel router for the auto Wi-Fi, like using Reticulum, but you can also use that as a way to then pull down if you need like docs reference or to pull it down like the source code onto a new machine. So just showing that flasher I referenced, this would be a live public flasher on the open website once it's live. As of right now, even we already have these 4 we are targeting, as many as we can. It's mostly just a matter of getting the board, wiring up the kind of adapters, if you will, for those particular boards, because it's all using the same core Reticulum, the same thing that runs on the desktop and the mobile phone and any other embedded. But then we just have to pick, the exact nuances of a given board. So with community help, hopefully we can fill out this list, relatively quick, and any others that aren't even on there yet. But even right now, there's already 4 available that can be flashed live. Now, just a quick asterisk, just to be clear, when you're doing the access point mode here and you pulled it down, like from directly served as a static file as a little web server and pulled it down, now this thing doesn't have enough flash to carry a copy of every possible other flashable binary. So the web flasher in this form wouldn't work outright. However, because you have the source zip that you can pull and you can run, there's a CLI flasher as well as part of that repo. So you'd have access to that CLI flasher once you've built from source. So at least there is still a way to recover it, even in a pretty constrained situation, as long as you've got that machine that can build source and then run the flasher locally. In fact, you can see right here, this is what's I'm just running this locally as well. And so you'd have a way, even if you had no internet access, to still be able to flash that, both from the CLI on a machine like this from source code, or if you were to run the dock site locally, you could run the web flasher if you preferred that. And so there you have it. That's got us to the end. Thanks for coming along for the ride. We've got, just in review, I wanted to take it all in, that we've got a Mac, we've got an iPad, we've got an Android, a Linux machine, a Windows machine, 3 different kinds of embedded devices, and all of them are speaking the same language in multiple paths across the various radios or serial connections or whatever they might have to communicate. So I'm excited for the future, because this is, as of the time I'm making this video, probably roughly a few more weeks out for public release. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe here and like here if that matters to you and you'd like to get that. Also keep an eye on the Reticulum Reddit. I likely post there as well. Well, thank you for coming along for the ride, and I hope to see you around in the community and hope to see cool stuff that all of y'all are building as well.